The Vacrian Empire had conquered 47 star systems in less than a century. Their battlecruisers were technological marvels, their warriors bred for combat from birth, and their tactical doctrine was studied across the galaxy as the pinnacle of military science. When Ambassador Thexval stood before the Galactic Council and declared humanity's new colony on Kepler 442b an illegal settlement, no one expected the humans to resist. "You have 72 hours to evacuate," Thexval announced, his chitinous plates gleaming under the council chamber lights. "Failure to comply will result in military action." Captain Jennifer Hayes of the UNSC Defiance received the ultimatum with a tired smile. She'd been expecting this. The Vacrians had been circling human space for months, looking for an excuse. Kepler 442b was barely 6 months old, home to 3,000 colonists, farmers, engineers, and their families. The Vacrians wanted the planet for its rare earth deposits. 72 hours, Hayes repeated to her crew. "All right, people. Let's show them what happens when you threaten a human colony." What the Vacrians didn't understand, what most of the galaxy didn't understand, was that humans didn't just fight wars. They personalized them. When the Vacrian fleet arrived at Kepler 442b, they expected panic. Instead, they found every colonist armed and waiting. The farmers had organized into militia units. The engineers had turned mining equipment into improvised weapons. Even the children knew where the bunkers were. Commander Marcus Thompson led the orbital defense. His ships were older, smaller, and outnumbered 3-1. But Thompson had studied every Vacrian battle in their database. He knew their formations, their preferred tactics, and their weakness. They fought by the book. Humans didn't have a book. The Vacrian admiral opened with a standard dispersal pattern, expecting the human ships to either flee or form a defensive sphere. Instead, Thompson's fleet scattered like startled birds, then regrouped in a chaotic swarm that seemed to have no pattern at all. The Vacrian targeting computers struggled to predict movements that followed no tactical doctrine. Then the Defiance did something no military commander in Vacrian history had ever witnessed: it rammed straight into their flagship. Not to destroy it, that would have been suicide. Captain Hayes had calculated the exact angle and velocity to disable the flagship's main weapon array while keeping her ship intact. The collision sent both vessels spinning, but the Defiance recovered first. Hayes was already firing on the confused Vacrian support ships. "Crazy doesn't even begin to cover it," muttered Lieutenant Rebecca Martinez from the weapons station, grinning as she launched everything they had. On the ground, the colonists were proving equally unpredictable. The Vacrians landed their shock troops in the expected locations, near the main settlement, the spaceport, the power station. They found holographic projections and sensor decoys. The real colonists had relocated to the forests and mountains, using terrain the Vacrian scanners couldn't penetrate effectively. Michael Patterson, a former Marine turned farmer, led a team that ambushed a Vacrian platoon using nothing but modified crop dusters and fertilizer bombs. The Vacrians had better armor, better weapons, better everything. But they'd never fought an enemy that turned agricultural equipment into weapons of war. The battle lasted 6 days. The Vacrians had never experienced anything like it. Human ships appeared from impossible angles. Ground forces struck from unexpected directions, then vanished. Civilians fought like soldiers. Soldiers fought like madmen. But the worst part, the part that would haunt Vacrian military academies for generations, came on the 7th day. The humans stopped fighting. Thexval, commanding from his fortress ship in high orbit, was suspicious. Human casualties had been minimal despite being outgunned. Vacrian losses were mounting in ways that didn't make tactical sense. And now, silence. Then Captain Hayes broadcast on all frequencies, "Admiral Thexval, we need to talk." The meeting took place on neutral ground, a Galactic Council observation station. Thexval arrived expecting surrender terms. Instead, Hayes showed him a data chip. "This contains complete tactical information on 43 Vacrian military installations," she said calmly. Fleet positions, defensive capabilities, supply lines. We've had eyes on your empire for 3 months. We know where your families live. Where your shipyards are. Where every single one of your colony worlds is located. Thexval's translator struggled with his response. You would threaten civilians. No, Hayes said, and her smile was cold. But you did. You threatened 3,000 of ours. So we wanted you to understand something, Admiral. We didn't fight you with everything we had at Kepler 442b. We fought you with what was already there. Farmers and engineers and one outdated ship. She leaned forward. Imagine what we'll do with our actual military. Imagine what happens when you give 300 billion humans a reason to get creative. We're the species that split the atom to end a war. We're the species that turned spaceflight into a weapon on our first try. We don't have your technology or your strength, but we have something you'll never understand: we take everything personally. The silence stretched between them. Leave Kepler 442b, Hayes continued. Leave human space. And pray to whatever gods you have that we never have this conversation again. Thexval returned to his fleet. Within 12 hours, every Vacrian ship had left the system. Within a week, the Galactic Council received an official Vacrian declaration: human space was to be considered a no-conflict zone. When asked why the mighty Vacrian Empire had backed down, Thexval gave an answer that would echo across the galaxy: they don't fight to win. They fight like losing isn't an option. There's a difference. A terrifying difference. On Kepler 442b, the colonists returned to their farms. Captain Hayes returned to patrol duty. And humanity added one more entry to their growing reputation: the species you never, ever threaten. Because humans don't just fight back. They make it personal.